This is a prelude to today's episode of Into Your Head Podcast Hello. Today's episode of Into Your Head Podcast Hello, it's got a lot of stuff in it about crabs. Don't be put off by that. It's not really about the crabs. If you're some sort of an anti-crustacean person, or else perhaps you're a pro-crustacean person and you're against eating them, because there'll be stuff about seafood restaurants in this. But don't worry, it's all nonsense. It won't offend you at all. If you're against eating crabs, don't worry. It won't offend you at all. In fact, I think you'll find the crab comes out the winner in all this. Although now that I think about it, that's not true at all. I suppose it depends on how you interpret the story. The only way to find that out is to listen. Don't worry, the whole show isn't about crabs. You just mentioned crabs in passing a few times. I just thought you'd like to know. If you're one of these people who likes to protect crabs from being eaten, then don't worry, this isn't going to offend you or anything. And if you're one of those people who are pro-crabs in terms of being pro-eating them, it won't offend you either. It's pro-crab all the way. It's pro-crabs existing, and it's pro-crabs not being eaten, and it's pro-crabs being eaten and enjoyed, if that's your idea of being pro-crab. You can be pro-cow and also pro-beef, because you can say you like cows. You like to eat stuff that you like. Apparently that's weird now. If you like eating something, that means you're against it. No. If I said I liked eating you, does that mean I hate you and want you to die? No, it doesn't. It's a compliment. I'm saying you taste nice, or it's enjoyable to eat you. Maybe I'm not saying you taste nice. If I enjoy eating you because it means you're going to be dead and gotten rid of and I've murdered you or something, then that's not okay. That's not okay at all. But no, that's not what we're talking about here. If you're a pro-crab and you're going eating crab meat in a restaurant, you're enjoying that because you like crabs. You like the texture and the taste of crabs. You're pro-crab. And if you're a pro-crab and that you want them to be saved from being drowned in a pool of boiling water and then crammed down someone's gullet, surely to Christ you'd be happy about someone enjoying the crab. Someone who likes the crab enjoying the crab. Do you want people to not like crabs? Is that what you want? You want them to turn against crabs? Do you think the only way to save crabs is to make everybody hate them? No, that's not going to work at all. If you make everyone hate crabs so much that not only will they refuse to kill and eat them, they just shun them everywhere, that's not going to help at all. No. Those crabs won't exist if people keep hating them, unless they throw them back in the sea and somehow they rewild themselves and manage to get a population going, not dependent on there being a crab industry. I suppose that's possible. Anything's possible, I suppose. So no, there you go. That's what's coming. Don't worry though, the whole thing isn't crab-centric. There's some stuff about mountain biking. It's not really about mountain biking. The impractical design of a dog's mouth, loads of other stuff. But don't worry, I shouldn't have mentioned the crab thing at all. It's not a big deal. And then I mentioned hermit crabs as well. I think that's a type of crab, but I haven't looked it up or anything. I just like the hermit crab. In my day, a hermit was a person who lived in a hut out the middle of nowhere somewhere. Like a Unabomber, but not necessarily a terrorist. They could be a reasonably decent person. Or they could be someone who's just not a people person. And if there's one type of hermit that's not a people person, it's a hermit crab, who's not a person at all. Doesn't even count as a people crab in terms of a crab who likes to encounter people. Because it knows damn well that even people who like crab is not going to end well for the crab. Even though I would argue that that's a good thing. These are people who like crab for one reason or another. Either they like to eat it, or they like to make sure it's not killed at all. Either way, the entire population, I don't think there's more than 1,000 or 2,000 people who don't like crab in one way or another. They either like to eat them, or they like to save them from being eaten. I suppose there's people who like to save the crab from being eaten, but they don't like to save the crab's life. They want to come in and say, don't eat that fucking crab. Put it on top of a spike somewhere down at the beach and put it up as a warning to crabs, saying, keep away from our village or we'll make damn sure that you're killed and put on a spike and not given to a restaurant because you want your death to be completely in vain. Well, in vain for you. It won't be in vain for me because I'm making a point with it. Probably end up in jail. But that's what you have to do these days if you want to make a stand against these things. Just like in that thing. What's that other thing where they make a stand? That Stephen King book, The Stand, that was supposedly, according to him, if you manage to get through the first 1,000 pages or so, eventually you get to a thing where they're making a stand against your man who's kind of like Satan, who's the baddie in The Stand. That's why it's called The Stand, because supposedly they're making a stand against it. I didn't really get that. They weren't making a stand against anything. They were just trying to get the fuck out of there alive. That's all they wanted. Suppose they were making a stand against death. How did that work out for them? Nearly the whole population was already dead at the beginning of the book, but they're making a stand against death by having 3 or 4 people survive. No, that's nonsense. And people who do that should be told, you're not achieving anything. You're having a tiny effect. 7 billion people dead from some plague or something, and there's 3 or 4 of you making a stand. That's ridiculous. You've already lost. What do you think? Death is going to go, oh, those 3 or 4 people have a problem with what I did. Maybe I should apologise and do some diplomacy. But even if death does that, if death apologises for destroying the whole population in a plague, that doesn't mean you've won a stand against Satan, because Satan and death are 2 different things. Now, in that book, I don't think they have death as a character. They just have the fella, is it Flagon or Flagon or something, who's a bit like Satan because he wears a denim jacket. And we're supposed to think, oh, this fella, in the 1980s, if you wore a denim jacket and you were an adult, that meant you were a scary bollocks, a scary old bollocks. You're very much Satan. You probably caused the plague in the first place, did you? You probably did. You probably didn't wash your hands going into a toilet. That's considered Satan-like, certainly in today's society. If you don't wash your hands when you go to the toilet, even if you're just having a piss and you're not pissing on your hands, people will expect you to wash your hands, even with the cost of liquid soap today. Do you know how much liquid soap is today? You get a bottle, supposedly a refill bottle. Oh, it's about €18 for a bottle. Except it doesn't come in a bottle anymore. It comes in a bag. You're getting liquid soap in a bag. And you're supposed to dispense it into something. Suppose you could get a whiskey decanter or something. Like they do in TV dramas. When you go into TV dramas, in some situation comedies, the husband gets home from work very stressed. And he goes straight for the whiskey decanter, and it's usually on a table behind the sofa. Pours himself a drink, and nobody asks, are you a fucking alcoholic? You're having the fucking... They did this too there was an English thing called Yes Minister, where it was about a minister and the head of the civil service, and the minister used to pour himself a glass of whiskey like he was at home relaxing. He wasn't at home. Well, sometimes he was at home relaxing when he did that. But no, they had a whiskey decanter in the office. And by the way, I would argue that if you decant all your whiskey into a whiskey decanter, it's all being decanted already. And then if you decant it from that into a glass every time you decide to have a glass of it, that's double decanting. That's like having a double chocolate on your muffins. I got triple chocolate muffins a few weeks ago. They were a bit much. Now, I presume it means they put 3 layers on. They put on the first coat of chocolate and then they let that dry a bit, like an undercoat. Then they put on the second layer and they let that dry. And then they put another coat on top of that. And then that's called a triple chocolate muffin. I presume that's what they do. It's a bit much. It was a bit much. People claim to like chocolate, but then if you give them too much of it, they think, like I do, they think, that's a bit much. I remember when I was a child, there used to be a commercial on the television that went something along the lines of a finger of fudge is just enough to give your kids a treat. Now, I don't know what fudge is made of. It seems to be a cheap substitute for chocolate. It's in the shape of a stick and you cram it into your mouth and that's supposedly just enough to give your kids a treat. What are you trying to treat them to? Enjoying what it's like to have your mouth full of something that's not shit. Because that's the best thing I can say about a finger of fudge, that it's not shit. It's one level up from shit, so it's better than that. I suppose everything is relative. That's what they say. Everything is relative. Into your head! 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 on with today. Items that need to be attended to, issues that need to be addressed, topics. Oh, topics. We've got lots and lots of topics. We're positively booming to the seams with topics. We've got topics coming out of this picture on my telephone. What is it? Oh, it's a picture of an item that's arriving from Amazon today. It's got a hole in one end and a plug at the other. And if you felt like it, you could plug one end into the other. Wouldn't really achieve anything other than symbolically. I suppose it gives you a sense of continuity and completeness. Although it's not completeness. Something going round in a circle forever and ever in a loop is not complete. It never completes. Like that episode of Black Mirror. I think it was called something like Black Christmas. Some fella being in some virtual prison where he's sitting in a cabin at Christmas somewhere in a hut, and it's Christmas every day, and he experiences that for thousands of years as a prison sentence in his brain, some sort of virtual thing. And that's what it would be like. This thing that's coming today, it's got a little socket at one end. At the other end, it's got a plug that's like the one on the headphones. If you leave it unplugged, it's more like a skipping rope, except it would be unbalanced. It's a skipping rope, I presume. I've never used a skipping rope or thought about them at all until today, but I assume part of the thing with a skipping rope is that both sides are supposed to be level. The two handles should be exactly the same, they should weigh the same and be the same for balance. Maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference if you're just a child in the street. But if you're a professional, I presume there's people who do skipping on a professional basis or a serious competitive basis. Surely to Christ, it's not just children who use them. Every other sport that children play, there's a professional version, or there's someone else who does it, or there's someone else. If a child goes and gets a bicycle and starts cycling that round, jumping off hills and rocks with it and climbing up hills and trying to do stunts, the whole species that we know as children did not come up with that independently. There was an adult somewhere doing that and they saw it, possibly on television. They're probably watching television and then they saw some mountain bike thing cycling around in these things for sport. And there's some fella commentating it saying, oh, there's the world champion of riding around on a bike where there's no road. There he is. He's going to go up that hill now and then he's going to jump over the little hills. The bigger hills, he's just going to cycle up the side of them and down the other side. When you're mountain biking, if you come across a little hill, you just kind of go over that. You either jump over it or jump off it or whatever, use it like a ramp. If there's a big hill, you just keep going up and up and up and up and up until you get to the top. And then you go down and down and down and down and down the other side. I presume so anyway. I've never done mountain biking. I did own a mountain bike at one point, but I used it as a cycle to the train station. And that was many years ago. I don't cycle to the train station anymore. The train station is 10 minutes walk from here and it's all downhill. Why would you cycle to that for one thing? For another thing, if you do that, you have to cycle home as well. And that's up a huge fucking hill. Because I live up on a huge fucking hill now. Not at the top of the hill, thank Christ, but I live about a third of the way up a huge fucking hill, and a third of the way up is more than enough, I can tell you. If you walk up that carrying anything in a bag on your back, it's like climbing Everest. It doesn't get particularly cold, and you don't have to set up a camp where you go and spend the night before you have your go at the summit. No, it's not like that at all. It's more of a road with houses on it, and there's a footpath. I usually walk up the footpath. I go up and up and up and up and up. And then I get to the corner where my house is near. And then I turn the corner and then I have to go down a bit. You have to go up and then down to get to my fucking house. Absolutely ridiculous. Someone designed a road where you have to go up and up and up and up and up just to turn and then go down a bit. And then when you're going, you're probably way ahead of me here. You've realised that when I'm going the opposite direction, I also have to go up a bit and then down a bit. So even if I'm going downhill from my house down to the train station, I have to go up a bit first, despite the fact that the train station is down there. It's not up above me. It's at a far lower altitude than my house, but I still have to go up to a higher altitude before I can go down to it. Unless I find that ditch I used to take a shortcut down over many years ago. I can't really find it anymore. It seems to be overgrown. And I get the feeling it's not the done thing to go down there anymore. This neighbourhood has matured. They don't put up with people taking shortcuts through the ditch. I probably got away with it more when I was a younger person. You used to go up and down that ditch all day like there was no tomorrow. You go down the ditch, then you come out at the side of the main road, go to wherever you were going. And then the ditch is quite hard to find coming back, I can tell you. An overgrown embankment. You have to try to figure out where your house is in relation to the road. Your house is on a separate road system. You don't usually approach it up an embankment at the side of the main road. So when you're trying to find it, you have to go, I think it's up where that wall is. You go along the side of that fella's wall, and then you get to the bottom of our cul-de-sac, and then you go up there, and then you get to the house, and you say, oh, you don't say anything. You just go in. You don't have to say things just because you've arrived at your house. Unless you're giving someone a tour, you go, oh, we're here. This is our house now. Would you like a tour of it? Or would you like to just drive on and see somewhere else now? I suppose you could be giving a tour and show them my house, but then not be going into my house because it's not yours. You just say, that's a house there. Of nobody in particular. It's just a sample house from this neighbourhood. Maybe they bring people on tours nowadays and they come to live in a town and someone says, would you like a bus tour around this town? There's not much in it, to be perfectly honest, but we can show you some sample houses and then maybe we'll show you the train station and then we'll show you the sea. We have the sea in this town now. I don't know if I've ever told you, I live in the town that has the sea now. Has the sea over at one side of it. We're not surrounded by the sea, thank Christ. I wouldn't want to be surrounded by the sea. Because that means you're on an island. And now I know you're going to say I'm living on an island anyway. Historically, this is an island nation. Unless let's not go into that. But suffice to say, this is an island nation. It's not the sort of island where you're sitting in your house and you're going, oh, I can almost see the sea from every window. No, that's not how it works at all. Living in an island big enough to be a nation is not like living on an island at all. Or at least I assume it isn't. I've never lived on an island other than this one that I've lived on all my life. I've never lived in one of those small islands. There's people living in little tiny islands off the west coast of this country. They get on a boat every few months and they go over to the mainland. And then some of them get on the boat every day and go over to the mainland. And then they have to go back because their house is on the island. And then they go around saying smart arse things like, no, man is an island. This isn't a man. This is it's a lump of rock. And we live on it. Isn't it great? No, it's not great. You live on a fucking island. You're a hermit. You're like a hermit crab. Is a hermit crab a type of hermit? I don't know. I know it's a type of crab, but I assume from the name that can also be a hermit. You can be two things, You can be a gunman who's a man but also a gun. That's not completely accurate, but you know what I mean. If you're a hermit crab and someone points out that you're a crab, that doesn't automatically disprove that you're a hermit. You can be a hermit as well. Or it might turn out that you're a hermit crab who's a hermit with nobody sure if you're a crab. You hear hermit crab and you think, oh, that must be a crab. I'm not sure about the hermit part. But you don't go, hermit crab. Oh, that must be a hermit. I'm not sure about the crab part. Well, that would be the more reasonable approach to take. Because why would a fucking crab be a hermit? What in the name of Christ? Is that just do normal crabs go around having conversations all day and going into the office with their peers? They do not, because they're fucking crabs. Now, I know what you're thinking now. You're thinking, oh, I like crab. I like to go into a restaurant and say, hello, I'll have the crab, please. And they say, oh, which one? Because we've got more than one. And then they show you a tank. I've never done this, but I presume when you're buying a crab in a restaurant, they show you the tank. And they say, which crab would you like? This one here has just had a shit, as you can see, in the water. Unfortunately, no way to hide that. Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned it, if I was displaying crabs in my restaurant and I was never sure which ones were going to be the best behaved or the best looking, I'd get one crab and then I'd set her up so the tank is like a hall of mirrors. So people they see several crabs, but they're all a reflection of the one good crab that we've got on display. And then there's all sorts of mirrors, like some sort of hall of mirrors. And there's definitely other crabs in there, but you can't see them. Where you'd expect to see them, you just see reflections of the other crab. Now, hopefully, the one crab that you select as your show crab would have to be quite generic, and he'd also have to be not too interesting, because if he's doing things like pulling faces or practicing the backstroke a lot, then all the other crabs are going to look like they're doing that as well, because they're all just his reflections, and people are going to be suspicious about that. They'll say, did you get a bad batch of crabs? Because they're all doing this weird thing where they do the backstroke. One of them seems to be sticking out its tongue at me. Is that a bad batch? And of course, if you're a proper salesperson running your restaurant, you'd say, no, quite the opposite, sir or madam. We got a good batch of crabs today. They're fresh in from the local crab boat. The local crab boat goes up the coast a bit or down the coast a bit. Doesn't go all the way around the coast, because although we're on an island, it's quite a big island. By the time you got the crabs home, you'd be going, oh, was that really worth it? I should have stopped halfway around and sold the crabs there. They're gone off now. If you were doing that, going around the whole island nation, around the coast, and then coming back with your haul of crabs and saying to people, oh, here's some fresh local crabs, people would say, those are not fresh local crabs. You went around the whole fucking coast getting them. They're local to about 8 different places. The whole point of getting fresh seafood and bringing it back to sell to a restaurant locally is that people can say, oh, look, this is fresh Wicklow crab from the fresh Wicklow Sea. It's not from the fresh fucking Sligo Sea that you went during your weird trip around the whole country. No. And if you're going to get it from Sligo, you'd be better off going by road. Put your boat on the back of a truck or a trailer and drive down to Sligo the direct way and then put it in the sea there. That's what you do. Because I went on a holiday cruise down the other side of the country once in County Clare. Started in County Clare and then went up the Shannon River towards the Midlands. We didn't hire the boat in Dublin and then go around the whole sea. Because for one thing, it was a freshwater boat and I have no idea how to drive a boat anyway. No. We got driven down to the far end of the country and then we went to a harbour there and got the boat there and went up the river. So I don't know why you do it any differently if you're a crab person. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't. Maybe you see it differently. I suppose you don't have to see it the same way as me. And it doesn't really matter if you do, because it's not like I'm running a crab restaurant here and I have any control over these matters. No. But I do like my olive mirrors tank idea. I'm going to leave that in. 2 dogs walk into a cat food restaurant. One of the dogs goes straight up to the waiter who happens to be walking round and says, hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please? And the waiter says, I think there's been a mix-up here, sir. For one thing, you're a dog. You're a dog. A dog. I can clearly see you're a dog. You've got floppy ears. And this is a cat food restaurant. You don't come in here and ask for a pint. Even if you were a cat, you wouldn't come in here and ask for a pint of my finest Guinness before you've even been sat down. No. You sit down and I come around with the menu. And then I say, would you like something to drink while you wait, sir? And that's when you say, we'll have a pint of your finest Guinness, please. But that's also when I say, are you a dog? A dog? Basically a dog. Is that what you are? And you'll say, yes, I am a dog. Although you won't be able to say it quite that well, because I don't think you can say dog with a dog's mouth. Now, even a talking dog, I very much doubt a talking dog could do that sound. With the shape of its mouth, I think you need an innie mouth rather than an outie mouth to do something like that. Because you need to be able to have it coming right up from the guts of the back of your throat when you go, dog. I don't see how you could do that with an oblong mouth. These animals, they have these oblong mouths. They look like I don't know what you call them, but you can see each side of the mouth. The mouth goes around like a horseshoe shape. It goes along one side of the face and then along the other side of the face. And there's very little at the front. If you were to consider that the front of their head was their face, then there's pretty much nothing to see there at all. If you look at the front of someone's face, and all you see head on is just the eyes and then this snout thing that's about 3 inches out in front of their face. I don't think the eyes count as part of the face in that instant, because the Oh, the nose is out too far in front. The face can't be both at the front of the nose, at the front end of the snout, and at the back end. That's like saying the driver of a bus was positioned so that he sat halfway down the bus, about 4 seats down from the front, but he had the steering wheel there. That's what a dog's face is like. You've got the snout sticking out in the front. Where the tip of the snout is, you'll say that's where the front of a bus would usually be. But the dog's face is in fact several seats back from that. But the snout and the protruding piece of the mouth that's attached to the snout, that's all sticking out in front. Several inches in front of the actual face, the cheeks and the eyebrows and the eyelids and the eyes and the forehead. That's ridiculous. You imagine running a bus like that. You couldn't do that. It'd be like having a backseat driver. You'd have to arrange it like one of those shuttle trains they used to have. They used to have one going between Bray and Greystones where they would go from Bray to Greystones and then the driver would get out of the front end of the train and go down to the other end, and the other end would become the front of the train because there's a front of the train at each end. But for that to work on the dog would have to have 2 faces, and it doesn't have 2 faces. It doesn't. I don't know any dogs who have 2 faces. If a dog did have 2 faces, I suppose it would get a job in a circus or something, or more to the point, its owner would sell it to the circus and make money out of that. So I suppose that's not a good example, because a dog who had 2 faces wouldn't be living the average life of a dog. So there's no way to say how. If you had a dog with 2 faces, you couldn't study that and say, oh, this is a prime example of what would happen if dogs had 2 faces. It isn't, because they wouldn't be living the normal life of a dog. Or be living a life of a dog who goes on chat shows with its owner or hosting circuses and things. That's not what normal dogs do at all. You probably have the impression that that is what dogs do if you're not a dog owner, because most of the dogs you see are either on a chat show with David Letterman doing stupid dog tricks, or they're out in the street shitting everywhere. And you probably think that's what dogs do all the time. It's not what dogs do all the time. Well, I don't have a dog, so I don't know either, you see, that's the point.
Into your head.
Now, I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, this fella, he's going round, he's saying that fish restaurateurs should take steps to hide the fact that their crab that they're about to sell to a human being has just had a shit. He wants to have an intricate mirror system set up to conceal all the less presentable crabs and just mirror the one presentable crab so everyone sees that. Well, yes, what's wrong with that? It's called presentation. Just like when you're presenting a plate of chicken, you don't put the chicken's heart and lungs on display, sitting proudly on top of a potato with blood sliding down the potato like cranberry juice or something. Presume you mean cranberry sauce for a start. Cranberry sauce is for turkey, it's not for chicken, it's for turkey, and it's for fucking weirdos at Christmas. People get weird about cranberry sauce. Maybe they don't do it in your country, but they do in mine at Christmas. There are people who say, oh, I'm looking forward to Christmas dinner because cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce, cranberry sauce, cranberry sauce. There's some people, that's all they care about. They go on about this cranberry sauce for about 3 months in the run up to Christmas. And at the same time, they go around saying, oh, I wish people would stop going on about Christmas. Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. They're playing Christmas songs on the radio already, and it's only the 3rd of November. They're playing Christmas songs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's what they say. But then they also go on about cranberry sauce. Now, you might argue that maybe they're going on about cranberry sauce just in the context of their love of cranberry sauce. It's not about Christmas at all. If there was no such thing as Christmas, you'd probably think they'd have cranberry sauce on the 25th of December regardless. Well, why would they be doing that? You need to ask yourself that. If you know someone who claims to like cranberry sauce regardless of whether it's Christmas or not, but they're having that on the 25th of December, ask yourself why they're doing that. Because that didn't come out of nowhere. They may be doing it subconsciously, but that came from somewhere, that thought that they have on the 25th of December to have cranberry sauce. And ask them what they're putting it on, and then you'll see. I bet you you'll see. They won't say anything for a minute, But if you keep pressing them, they'll say, I'm having it on a fucking turkey, okay? I'm having the cranberry sauce on a fucking turkey with potatoes and ham and white sauce. And, oh yes, that's why I was about to say about the cranberry sauce, people. Everyone who makes a Christmas dinner makes a gravy and a white sauce, which is already 2 types of sauce that you have to find a place for on that dinner plate. And they take out their cranberry sauce as well, and they want that on it as well. They're going to have 3 pools of sauce. If I remember rightly, cranberry sauce is served cold too. So they have 2 hot pools, one for the white sauce and one for the gravy, and then they'll have a pool of cold cranberry sauce. How does that work exactly? How do you imagine that to work? Do you imagine they go up their bit of turkey and they dip that in the cranberry sauce and have a mouthful of that, and then they clean off the fork, pick up a piece of ham and dip it into either the white sauce or the gravy, or what? Well, white sauce is for ham and Brussels sprouts. That's what white sauce is for, and maybe cauliflower. So in that instant, what is the gravy for? If it's not for the turkey, because they've got maybe they'll just say, oh, I don't want any gravy, thank you, I've got my cranberry sauce. Well, that's a bit rude. Would you go up to someone who's just spent hours and hours and hours cooking a Christmas dinner, including gravy, and say, no, thanks, I don't want any gravy, I brought my own stuff in a jar? Although now that you mention it comes in a jar, so at least they wouldn't have to make a pool of it on their plate, so it's not that complicated as I thought it would be. So they get up a bit of turkey on the fork and presumably they dip that into the jar. Now that's a problem too, because those jars, a jar of that, anyway, if it's anything like anything else I buy, I usually had a year-long date on it, stuff like that. It keeps for about a year, so you get 2 Christmases out of it if you're lucky. But if you buy it on the 23rd and you use it for that Christmas and then it's still in date the following Christmas, but you're dipping into that, it's probably got bits of last year's turkey in it somewhere that you can't even see. You're going to poison yourself. You'll probably tell yourself, it's not the cranberry sauce that's poisoning me, it's the bits of last year's turkey that are accidentally stuck in it. So don't blame the cranberry sauce for that. Either way, you're going to be dead from food poisoning. Doesn't really matter who you want to blame or who you want me to blame or not to blame. You're going to be dead from food poisoning, or else very ill for an hour or 2. You probably have to spend some time in the toilet, which I suppose you do anyway after a meal like that. So I suppose there's... forget I brought it up, it's fine. Forget I brought her up. 2 cats walk into a bar. One of the cats goes straight up to the bar counter and says, hello, can I have a pint of your finest Guinness, please? And the man behind the bar says, certainly, sir, a pint of your finest Guinness coming right up. And the cat says, I think you mean my finest Guinness. And the barman says, no, I said your finest Guinness, sir. And the cat says, from your point of view, it's my finest Guinness, as in it's your finest Guinness. But you said, a pint of your finest Guinness coming right up, and it isn't my finest Guinness. No, it's a pint of your finest Guinness. And the barman says, yes, that's what I said, a pint of your finest Guinness. And the cat says, no, you don't understand. This is a very basic point of grammar. And it may seem unimportant, but it's important because if you're having a conversation like this and you can't even get this right, what's going to happen when you're having a conversation about something important? What's going to happen then? You say, oh, hello, officer. Yes, I got gunned down by this gunman. Oh, wait, I thought I was going to get an example out of that. No. You see, I am a cat. I have my limitations. I can foresee situations in which that grammar could cause life and death problems for you. You could be saying, sir, out here, that's what I was trying to think of. You get mugged by an armed robber and the cops come in and you say, hello, officer. My armed robbery is in action here. And the cop says, oh, you're under arrest, sir. And you say, no, I don't mean it as in I was in charge of it. I'm not the leader of a gang of criminals. I'm just saying my premises was the victim of an armed robbery. And the cop will say, well, you get the general idea. And the barman says, oh, I see your point there. I see your point. And the cat says, it's not my point. Oh, yes, it is my point. Now did you mention it? Oh, you see, you finally got it. You've got it. You're doing it right now. It's my point. And the barman says, exactly, it's your point. And the cat says, oh, that's great. You've learned straight away. I'm good at it. I should be a teacher. I'm very good at this. And the barman says, you are indeed. You are indeed. But this means our two cats walk into a bar story has come to a natural conclusion at 3 minutes. And that seems a bit short, doesn't it? And the cat says, yes, I suppose it does. How is that our problem? Not our problem at all. What are we? What are we here? Just fodder for some thing on the internet. What even is the internet? Do you know what the internet is? And the barman says, as a matter of fact, yes, I do. It's an international network of computers that was originally built for military purposes. Presumably someone set up a network whereby you could press a button at one end and at the other end of the world, it pulls a trigger on a gun and shoots somebody or something. I presume that's what it does. And the cat says, I see the limitations of your knowledge now. And the barman says, what do you mean? And the cat says, well, I see you're pretty much just guessing at how the internet works. I mean, you've a fair idea in principle of what the internet is, but not what it does. There is nobody pressing a button at one end and causing a gun to go off by the button pulling a trigger at the other. For one thing, that would be fly-by-wire technology, like what they have on a plane. And that's quite sophisticated. You wouldn't want that on the internet. Would you want fly-by-wire technology on the internet? And the barman says, there's no flying involved. Although I suppose the Wi-Fi signal flies through the air. But it's not really flying, is it? It's not like it's flapping its wings or anything. In fact, not even a plane flaps its wings. Why do planes have wings but not flap them? That's ridiculous. They have flaps built into them that do important stuff, but the wings themselves don't flap. Someone thought, oh no, that's a bit much. I know we're trying to copy the idea of flight that birds do. But no, having the whole winged flapping, that's just a bit much. I mean, next we'll have to have a proper tail with feathers on it and a beak and eyes. And now that you mentioned it, some of the bigger jumbo jets kind of look like the front bit looks like it could be a bird's head because it comes up in a hump at the front. There's the bow front. Or is that Concorde I'm thinking of? I don't know. I'm sure there's jumbo jets where it kind of sticks up at the front. It looks like a kind of top of a bird's head coming out of it. But there's no feathers or anything. Feathers probably wouldn't help on the plane because it's unpredictable how they move. Everything on the plane needs to be as predictable as possible. You can't set your feathers to flap to 85 degrees or 70 degrees or wherever you've calculated based on the weight of the plane and how much fuel you have and what speed you need to be going to reach the airport. No, but somehow birds seem to do it, so I suppose that's true. Birds don't need runways though, that's the other thing. Why do birds not need runways? Or maybe they do. Maybe they do need runways and they're making do. Maybe every landing and takeoff a bird ever does is a huge thing to them. They think, oh Christ, I have to do another crash landing. Every time I take off now, I end up having to do a crash landing because runways for birds haven't been invented. These people studied us for 100 years and built these mechanical planes and runways based purely on our ability to fly, but it never occurred to any of them to let us use runways. No, they expect us to just behave like helicopters. Birds are expected to behave like helicopters, which probably feels very unnatural to them. They're probably taking off and landing like a helicopter probably feels very unnatural to a bird. I bet you back in the dinosaur era, you had natural runways then, because a natural runway is just a load of empty space with no people going around getting in the way. Basically everything was like that in those days. So pterodactyls were probably able to run around like the Roadrunner. Well, the Roadrunner in the cartoon, there's a lot of running. And if you do that, you should be able to take off quite easily. Which is strange, they never showed that in the cartoon. They showed the Roadrunner and the coyote doing all sorts of impractical, impossible things. But they never showed the Roadrunner taking off like a plane, despite it going at high speed. That's ridiculous. That was a ludicrous program. When you think about it, absolutely ludicrous. And if I remember rightly, it was in the middle of the Pink Panther show or something else like that, was it? Oh no, it wasn't. Or was it in the... No, there was a Roadrunner and Coyote show on its own. They had their own show. So in the middle of that, I think they probably had that thing about the anteater. There was a cartoon about an anteater that used to be in the middle of one of those cartoon shows. I think there was an anteater and there was some other animal that had a kind of New York accent. There was a bit like that American comedian who used to go something about, some nonsense. That fella they're always talking about. You know the one. You do. Although you probably don't. Maybe I'll think of it during the editing process and put it in. Because I have a microphone set up at my editing area now in the sitting room, so I can edit myself during the production process now and not just listen to it and go, oh Christ, I forgot. I know what I was going to say there, but I can't correct this now. No, I can do that then. This is you during the editing process. The name you're trying to think of is either Jackie Mason or Rodney Dangerfield. And not just listen to it and go, oh Christ, I know what I was going to say there, but I can't correct this now. Maybe I'll look up who that comedian was. Well, maybe I won't, because when I do, it'll sound ridiculous, because you haven't said anything that particularly relates to him in any way that's original. So maybe I just won't, and I'll leave you guessing. Because if I leave you guessing, you'll probably... it's like when you write a song and you say, oh, this has meaning to me, but I'm going to be vague so the listener can put their own meaning to it. So you put your own meaning to that story now, and it'll probably be a lot more meaningful to you. If you do that with everything I do on this program, then it'll work out great. Paul McCartney wrote yesterday. He wasn't going around going, oh, the listeners were going to like this, because they all remember yesterday too. We all remember yesterday. It was a bit of a shit day. It was raining. But apart from that, everything was fine. People aren't listening to that 50 years later and thinking, oh, I remember yesterday on that date, the date before Paul McCartney wrote this. It was a bit of a shitty rainy day where everything was quite good. No, they have to come up with their own interpretation every time they listen to it. That's how the climate has changed for one thing since then. Our people are listening on different continents that don't have the same climate. Or whatever. It's bugging me, that comedian, because he had a catchphrase that I can't even think of now. And I just have a sniff of it in my head, so I don't even give you the idea of who I'm talking about. That's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? Well, yes, it's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, on with the show. Rodney Dangerfield, that's who it was. And the catchphrase I was trying to remember that he did was, I can't get no respect. But I've also just remembered that he's not. I don't like that comedian at all. Even now that he's dead. I don't particularly like him. I don't mean any disrespect to him or anything, but I don't particularly like him. But that's okay, because I was only talking about him in the context of that Aardvark character for the other character who was another animal on that Aardvark cartoon. I can't remember which of them sounded like Rodney Dangerfield, but one of them did. If you care about that shit. Now, Rodney Dangerfield, if I remember rightly as well, he had some sort of a restaurant. He was some sort of a restaurateur. If I remember rightly, he set up, there was probably a comedy club, but comedy clubs are restaurants too. They serve food in them. They have someone coming around with food. They say, oh, here's a comedian, and here's some food. Cram this down your... Maybe I'm guessing at what he did now. I think he did set up a comedy club. I said, wasn't it called Dangerfields? Well, we look it up now. We look up the menu for Dangerfields. We might as well. Dangerfields Bakery, St. King Street. Oh, let's see. I don't think that's it. There's a Dangerfields Bakery, and that's the first thing that comes up. Oh, here we go. It's the second result. Oh, I think even Dangerfields Club is dead too, because in Wikipedia it says Dangerfields was a comedy club. So there we go. Must be gone now. I'm not going to read the rest of it. This isn't a reading program, and this isn't a mass where someone comes on in the middle and goes, "Oh, one fella's going to read a bit from the Bible now, and that'll be the first reading, and then we'll have an interlude where we do a responsorial psalm or something, or you get some children to bring up the gifts." That's what they do in mass after the first reading. Or maybe it was before the first reading. But there was a first reading and a second reading, and then there's the gospel. And then at some point during that process, they used to have children bring up gifts to the altar. Basically, it was a sacrifice. They'd bring up I could never see what they were bringing up. There's usually some nonsense. They do this at funerals. They have children bringing up some nonsense as gifts. And then the priest goes, "Oh, thanks very much. Is that for me?" And the children will say, "No, that's for Jesus. It's for Jesus, for his father." Are we here to? I can never remember, to be perfectly honest, as a child. I'm never quite sure. Are we here to worship Jesus or his father? Are we just worshipping Jesus because it's a way to get to his more famous father? I don't know. Or are we just worshipping his father as a way to get the young fella? I remember being taught in school that there was the 3 in 1. There was Jesus, and then there was God, and there was the Holy Spirit, and there was a trio. There was Trinity. There was a 3 in 1 deal. But I only ever really knew about the Jesus fella and the God fella. They both had beards. One of them looked a little younger, and one of them looked a little older and wiser. We were never showing any proper pictures of the Holy Spirit. We were showing a picture of God with a hole in his heart and some sort of fire going out through it. And that was something, I think that was meant to be something to do with the Holy Spirit. A hole in his heart with some sort of, they represented something going on in his chest or something. My mother's generation had that up in their kitchens in every house in the country. We had one too. It was never explained to me exactly what that was supposed to be. I thought it was in bad taste, to be perfectly honest, because both my father and my brother had heart surgery at one point. And my mother had this up in the kitchen, God with a hole in his heart, and he seemed to be doing perfectly fine despite this big hole in his heart. Not needing surgery or anything, happy to go around with a gaping open wound, trying to make out that it was something positive. It wasn't something positive. My father had heart surgery. He was dead within 14 months. It's not a good thing at all. Now, to be fair, that was the 1980s, and they probably got much better at it than then, so it's probably much better now. But that doesn't help with anything. God was cheating. If God was doing this in photos in the 1980s, so he was cheating. It was a misrepresentation. That's what it was. If a car salesman did that, he'd say, "That fella's a lying cunt." A car salesman wouldn't do that for very good reasons, but God apparently would, and a heart surgeon apparently would. What does that tell you about the world? It tells you it's all fake. The whole world is fake. That's what it is. World doesn't exist at all. It's just a figment of your imagination. I'm barely here at all. I'm probably just a figment of your imagination too, am I? He said, "Well, I suppose it's up to you to decide whether you have control over everything now, so you can say either I exist or I don't. If I'm a product of your imagination, then you have the power to make me exist. So if you don't mind, I think I'd appreciate if you went weird on the side of making me exist." Once upon a time, there was a dog. A dog. A dog. A dog. Basically a dog. And this dog, let me tell you about this dog now. This dog was going along one day, minding its own business in the street. Minding its own business and leaving its own business in the street, shitting everywhere, as dogs do, they shit everywhere. I think I alluded to this elsewhere in this episode, but yes, dogs shit everywhere. And if there's one thing this dog was doing that was dog-like, it was shitting everywhere. I was also walking around panting, going, now you probably won't have heard that, because my sound processing thing cuts out anything that sounds like me breathing. And if I go, you're probably just going to hear silence there, because it cuts out the sound of me panting like a dog. Because it says, he has it set to cut out any loud breaths. And if that's anything that sounds, if it's one thing that's like a dog's breath, it's him breathing and doing an impression of a dog using his breath. I suppose it has a point there. At least I figured out how to stop having it cut out my harmonica playing. So that's progress. I don't have my harmonica with me at the moment. It's in the other room. But no, that's fine. That's fine. We're making progress there. We'll figure out the dog panting thing eventually. There's one thing I'm not going to tolerate forever. It's my AI sound processing program cutting out my breathing just because I sound like a dog. Cut it out where I sound like a human breathing. Don't cut it out when I sound like a dog breathing. For Christ's sake. Sure, the Christ you can recognise my breathing and you can recognise background noises and cut that out. Sure, the Christ you can recognise that I'm doing an impression of a dog. And even if you don't recognise that I'm doing an impression of a dog, you should recognise that it's a dog, and you should be able to set it not to cut out dog noises. Is that too much to ask? Probably, I don't know. Probably is. But suffice to say, if you can set it to cut out anything that's not a human, there's a setting on this thing. Say, cut out anything that's not your voice and it's not music. And it decides that a dog panting is not my voice. I wonder what that's about. Whose voice does it think it is? Does it think it's a dog's voice? I don't know. Dogs don't have voices. They don't. Dogs don't have voices. They don't have a voice in our society. There's an election coming up and I can tell you there's no dogs here getting polling cards except in cases where there's a human committing electoral fraud. No, dogs don't have a voice in our society. And quite rightly too, because for one thing, they don't have a voice at all. But for another, maybe I'm giving the wrong impression with it. In this program, we have stories all the time where we have dogs talking. But that's not real. Dogs don't really talk. That's just it's not even an illusion. We all know damn well these dogs can't talk. And when I do dogs talking on this program, it's a load of bollocks. That's what it is. A load of bollocks. So now there you go. Anyway.